All right, we are going to get started. We have the link to the slide deck pinned to the top of our chat. And before I introduce ourselves, I'll introduce our session. Welcome to Module 2. This is covering using AI to differentiate for culturally and linguistically sustaining instruction. Again, we have our slide deck pinned to the top of our chat. And before we get into our inclusive welcome, we're just going to all introduce ourselves. And my name is Kaylee Paraccia, and I am a digital coach working on our EdTech team.
I'll go next. I'm Felicia Maestas. I'm the Senior Manager of ETLS, that's EdTech and Library Services.
I'm Luke Mund. I'm the Manager of Educational Technology.
Hey everyone, I'm Peter Douglas. I'm an EdTech specialist on the Educational Technology team.
And do we have Mr. Woolhams in the house? I thought I saw him. Matthew, I'm not sure if your microphone is working, but I see that you're trying. So Matthew, come over the mic whenever you can, but I'm going to explain our warm welcome in the meantime. So we're each going to go into breakout rooms. Last time we had our Canva whiteboard, we realized that if we have more than a certain amount of people that we need to break up that space. So we're going to do that today. Oh, hello, Mr. Williams. Go ahead.
Can you guys hear me at all? Yes, I'm Matthew Willems. I'm also a digital coach. Apparently not very proficient in my microphone work though.
We appreciate your honesty and vulnerability. Thank you, Matthew. So for our warm welcome today, we are going to go into each of our own breakout rooms. We want to have some small group discussions, and we want to make sure everybody has access to collaborating in our Canva whiteboard space. We just found when we have more than 50 users, kind of shuts people out. So we are going to lean into our culturally sustaining practices and come up with a collaborative cultural assets map. And we're just going to spend about 5 minutes adding pictures, videos. If you want to generate an AI image in Canva from what we learned last session, you're more than welcome to do that. But what that's going to look like is you're going to go into the Canva when we get into a breakout room. And remember, we have a few tabs down at the bottom. We're going to be starting on tab 1, and you might want to zoom in, and we have a few different categories that we can add some content to. So if you speak different languages, you can include a picture of the language that you speak, cultural traditions. We have inspirational figures, strengths and talents, hobbies and interests, travel, living experiences, professional experiences, and education background. So if you wanted to copy and paste an image from the internet, you can do that, but you can also use the elements on the left-hand side and search for any image that you want. Like my husband and I just booked a trip back to Prague. That's where we met. So I can drop in a little picture of Prague into our collaborative cultural assets map. And kind of the purpose of this is for us to all see kind of all the cultural strengths that we're bringing to the table and how many things that we have in common and can share. So Luke is going to push us into breakout rooms. And when we get in there, we will give you the link to our Canva whiteboard. Sorry for those of you who weren't able to get into a breakout room, but thank you, Drea, for staying back and I think plopping people in where they needed to go. And just super glad that we got to get into our first little breakout session. We're going to be returning to those same groups throughout this session. So keep those Canva whiteboards open and make friends with each other. So our module 2 objectives for today, we are looking at first, going through some advanced iterative prompting techniques to enhance instruction around culturally and sustaining indicators. We're also going to look at some tools for linguistically sustaining instruction, including equitable and ethical uses of AI tools for differentiation and translation. We're going to engage in some multimodal learning experiences, which we just did. We had a whiteboard, we were putting in pictures, we were talking. We're also going to look at some more multimodal generative AI tools. Then we're also just going to have some conversations, share collective knowledge around our kind of own understanding of ethics and equity when it comes to AI, because we're all kind of constructing this knowledge together. Again, our slide deck is pinned to the top of our chat.
Yes, and to frame this within the context of Denver Public Schools culturally responsive mindsets, we're focusing today on my responsibility, which is helping us cultivate experiences where students and team members thrive intellectually, socially, and emotionally, and also learning conditions to help co-create a safe, humanizing, joyful, and equitable learning working environment. Our next piece that we're looking at a little bit deeper in my responsibility, DPS practice number 3, focuses on students from racially, culturally, ethnically, and linguistically diverse backgrounds, and also under learning conditions, DPS practice number 3, looking for multiple solution strategies and representations. We have a diverse group of people in DPS.
And of course, along with our DPS instructional priorities, the theme of this session goes right in line with culturally sustaining and linguistically sustaining principles of our instructional priorities, and just a little picture of that instructional walkthrough tool there with hopefully that you're familiar with.
And our agenda today, and we know that people are going to be kind of in and out as it is after school hours and stuff. So come as you can, but we will have the Edpuzzle recording posted afterwards as well for anything you need to do async. So we've done the inclusive welcome. We're kind of going through our housekeeping, reminder of some policies. Then we're going to look at tools for culturally sustaining instruction, followed by linguistically sustaining. And then we're going to talk about sustaining languages and cultures with AI. And really excited about those breakout rooms as well. Then we're going to go into multimodal learning and how we can use multimodal generative AI. And specifically, we're going to use that to create some Canva things today. And then we'll do some just final PDU reminders talking about Module 3, which is going to be coming up soon.
So we're just going to review some quick PDU information, starting with our word cloud.
Awesome. So this is just what was generated from all the words that you all put into the chat at the end of last session, our last live session. Some things that are bigger are the things that were put in multiple times. So like lots of people excited, stoked. I just want to call out that some of the words hopeful, curious, and attempt. We all really appreciate you just being here and trying it out because it's new for all of us.
And some other kind of call outs from what we've learned together so far. We've just learned AI basics over the last module and a half or so. We've looked at some definitions, history, how to do prompt engineering, and also how to use Canva and Magic School. We're also in both of these modules looking at grade level instruction, joyful instruction, and culturally and linguistically sustaining instruction. We've also hit those other CRE mindsets. In module 1, we looked at self and high expectations. This module, we're looking at my responsibility and learning conditions. We had an incredible discussion board from module 1. In all my years of teaching, like if I could have used that as an exemplar for my students and just how genuinely engaged you guys were learning from each other, so stinking cool to see. And also really appreciate the feedback that we've gotten so far. I think step 2 might have been a challenge for some of y'all. So if it's just taking you a little bit of time and you need to go back and revisit it, please don't worry about timing on anything. But I think for module 3, we will create a quick overview video to go over some steps and some tricks and tips in using AI. And also, sorry if you had some assessment frustrations in Schoology using the video. Please chat me if you need help getting camera access in Schoology, but your video reflections were so amazing. Also wanted to call out Rachel W., I will never not see this image in my head that you created for Roald Dahl for your class. Hilarious. And shout out to Connor B. For just kind of scaring your kids a little bit around Terminator 3, but also guiding them through looking at writing examples generated with AI. Super cool to see all you guys have done so far. And just a reminder that we will have our next upcoming live session on March 18th, and that's going to be around student use of AI. And then April 29th, we can talk about, that might be a flexible day for some people, especially if you have a lot of people in your school building in-house doing the PDU. That can be flexible for y'all, but that live session is just for you to present your portfolio. And also at the end of this PDU session, to round out module 2, we're going to have a midpoint survey. And also we're going to remind you, if you haven't done so yet already, please administer the student survey in your class. We are working on getting the student data organized because they have so many fun ways to spell your names. And we have over 1,000 student results, which is so fun and so awesome. But we're just working on kind of aggregating the data for each of y'all. And by the end of this week, we're going to kind of send you for each of your classes what that student data is. And thank you, Luke, for dropping those in the chat.
And just a reminder for us all, again, our focus here is to really respect you as professional educators, keep humans in the loop. As we think about these tools and their impact on instruction and learning for students, I think we showed this last time, but we really do want to emphasize how important you all are in your lens and your perspectives and how you translate what AI is all about to your work.
And just a reminder, DPS does have a staff use artificial intelligence administration policy. So please refer to that when you are using that. We want to make sure that we are following DPS policy, and I think it's a rather good one. And then remember that we do want to safeguard our student data. So if you're going to be using AI, please do not put in like student names, ID numbers, stuff like that. I also recognize that AI does have a bias. So whenever you're using it, know that you're going to have that. Age restrictions. Most Google AI tools are 18 plus, so we shouldn't be using those with students. Some are 13 plus, so make sure that you're aware of those as well. And then always report on the ATM. Have your principal disclose through an Avanti ticket, DOTS ticket, that you are using those on the ATM, just so that we can follow our legal obligations. And then always double check. We know that AI can hallucinate, so we want to make sure that we are checking those things before we're turning anything in or have something super important that AI generates.
And this is just to call out a few more ethical, equitable considerations when we're thinking about differentiating with instruction. Luke already mentioned, please do not include student names, student ID numbers. Even if you're trying to accommodate a lesson based on a kiddo's IEP, please take out any of those identifying pieces of data. If we want to accommodate leveled text or translations, we want to make sure that that grade level original text is always paired with the accommodation. When putting supports in for IEPs, 504s, even supporting our MLE students, it's your professional judgment at the end of the day that is most important. And please just use those as a starting off point or a thought partner. If you need translations for external communications, please consult our DPS translation department. They are amazing. And we have links in our presentation for you to get in touch with them if you need to. But if you need like day-to-day quick resources for your kiddos, please feel free to use these translation tools. And last, a lot of our curriculums, like I'm thinking of like EL 2.0, they already have so many considerations for multilingual learners and students with IEPs for each of their lessons. So use those as well and learn, like triangulate, because they're the experts. And so we are going to look at advanced prompt engineering. Last time we kind of got into the basics of prompt engineering, but today we are going to kind of circle back and add a few more tips and tricks to make your prompts better for what you need to yield from them. But before we do that, we are going to ground in culturally sustaining instruction in using AI. And we want to just get into quick, Luke, if we could do like 4-minute breakout rooms. We're going to go back into our breakout rooms in our Canva whiteboard, and we're going to look at the specific indicator that we all identified as wanting to work on. And it's looking at how to push and challenge individualism and competition, and instead offer more collaborative and collectivist approaches to learning. So we're going to get into our Canva whiteboard space, and we have a bunch of little sticky notes. If you go into your very bottom and you're going to navigate to page 2, and you're going to, as a group, drag certain sticky notes into what would represent collectivist learning with AI and what would represent individualistic learning with AI. And just as a group, kind of separate those categories. And if you want, you can drag some of these emojis over if you have a question about something or if you like something. So we're going to go into 4-minute breakout rooms and just engage in this collectivist learning activity together.
And
Sorry, Danielle was just asking me an awesome question. Danielle, sorry about that. She asked about student use for AI. So we are still working with dots on that in Module 3. We'll have kind of more straightforward answers. If your kiddos are over 13, they can use personal emails using GPT if you file it on the ATM. You can also, at this point, I think it's just best to maybe model it with them like in front of the classroom. But yeah, I think we are still working with dots to give you the right answer on that. But I will say that we are also working for the fall to have a purchase license with Magic School, and they will have a student use side of that. So that's also in the works too. But we are going to get into prompt engineering.
Yeah. And Kaylee, just to add on to that, that question definitely came up in our breakout room as well. And we have to talk about this, but there is a platform that we might be able to show you next session for the student use that teachers can access. And then basically you can have students access the part that you craft as a teacher without any need for a login on their part or collecting any student information. So we still have to look at some of the parameters around that, make sure it's safe, but that might have some potential and make it easier for students to use these tools with a lot of guardrails and guidance from you as the instructor. All right, so prompt engineering, that's a fancy word. It's hot on LinkedIn right now, actually. I mean, people are getting jobs all around this. It's like, how do I talk to these AI tools in the most effective fashion to get the results that I really want back? So this is just a quick kind of little 5-bullet thing. I think we talked about it last time, but be thinking about these things when you're chatting with the Magic School AI chatbot, Raina. Think about these things, or if you're using ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot or Perplexity or any of them, all these principles still apply. Think about the context. You can have it take on a persona. It's like, maybe you want it to be a senior team lead and mentor you in some area. Have it, specify that. Give it a specific task. And you can see in the paragraph to the right here, the part that is related to that is underlined in the same color. Your task is to write content, Instruction. This can also be considered kind of like what tone you want it to take. I wanted to, write a friendly yet respectful email to a parent about something. You can specify that in the instruction. And clarify. You can actually ask chatbots, do you understand these instructions? And if there's something unclear, it'll actually, respond back to you saying, I need more information about such and such. And then the last part is refine. Again, remember that this is not like a Google search where you just put it in and you get a response. This is more like a conversation. So If you get a response back that's not quite what you want, tell it to refine it and give it some more guidance.
Sorry about that, Peter. I didn't
No,
mean to do
please,
that.
yeah, go right ahead.
Go ahead.
Am I still doing this one, or do you want to? I mean, you made these, so.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So again, just in thinking about our theme tonight for culturally and linguistically sustaining instruction, just here are some examples of how you can kind of work that into some of these. You can affirm students' funds of knowledge. You could say, knowing your students, you could talk about, my students are 10th grade, MLE students. You could give it kind of some information about your class, so that the information you get back is more geared specifically to what they're interested in, where they're coming from, more relevant. Prompt 2 is you can actually ask it for ideas. It's like, how do I connect finding the slope to these kids' everyday lives? You could actually have it create some interesting, relevant use cases for the content that you're teaching, if you find that it's just not really connecting with them. And the last one is if there's certain frameworks that you like Kagan cooperative learning strategies, specify that in the prompt. Say, give me 5 Kagan-based collectivist approaches to teach this lesson, and then you could actually upload your lesson plan or paste, a lot of detail in there, and it will give you very specific responses based on certain models. And at the bottom of each of those boxes, Kaylee put some links to some examples if you want to see how those resulted.
Yeah, and each of those examples are rooted in curriculum-based materials. So the first one used a lesson from, it looks like the EL 2.0 Lightning Thief Assessment, and I just plugged in the specific curriculum and kind of worked with the prompt in that way. So if you're curious what it looks like to use a curriculum resource in kind of guiding your planning and instruction, those are great examples linked in there.
These tips, again, just kind of thinking about refining what works for you. You may have already found some wording in your particular instructional context that's good. You can keep copying and pasting that at the beginning of each prompt. You could say, I'm an 11th grade AP chemistry teacher, doing such and such. And you could start all your prompts with that context, so that the AI knows, okay, this is what you're looking for. Here's one where somebody said, create some seating charts. They gave them names. Again, with this example, first names is just a single point of student information. So that would be a fine use case. But then they tweaked it saying, okay, that's good, but I want tables of 4, don't seat these 2 students next to each other, and give each table themes like trees or animals. So you could get really detailed and creative with that. Another one would be, and Kaylee actually has been, playing around with this more than I have. There's some ways to use some kind of special characters in your prompts, using quotes or angle brackets to refer to different parts of your prompt and avoid confusion. It just helps clarify really specifically to the chat bot what you're looking for. I haven't tinkered around with this as much as Kaylee has. Have you found good uses for this, Kaylee, or what did you find?
So like when I have really big chunks of text, I will just kind of, and I'll go back here to the examples, but when I have really big chunks of text, like in prompt 1 example over here, I'm just going to insert my entire lesson plan in between those brackets. And then the AI is able to differentiate between my input content and the actual prompt that I want and what I want it to do with that content. So I'm also in grad school, and I have, a few thousand words to read a day, and I can plug in multiple readings and bracket them off and say, okay, write me a synthesis of these 3 texts and pull out these items from it. So I really love using brackets when I have a lot of text to input into a prompt.
Nice. And the last tip we have for you is this one. Actually, some of our, if we have any of our coding folks in the room, this is about JSON and JavaScript, but you can have it be very methodical and specify steps in your prompt. And then you could say pause after each step and check for understanding. So you could actually almost kind of write a program just with prose and have the chat kind of go through step by step. I'm not explaining it very well, but think of like a chain of reasoning. Or if you're asking the bot to explain something to you, you could have it pause and say, "Do you understand? Is any part not clear?" To give even a student a chance to respond to it and say, "I still don't get it. Explain this part some more."
And we also just wanted to point out some specific tools in Magic School. We're going to cut you guys loose for about 5 minutes. And if you wanted to explore prompting or specific tools in Magic School, we just starred a few that specifically deal with culturally sustaining instruction. So creating choice boards for your kiddos, maybe turning a lesson into project-based learning, creating a group work generator where it helps you figure out roles, creating social stories, real world connections, multiple explanations, maybe for quadrilaterals or something, I don't know, or make it relevant. Played around with that a few times. Like, you have to tell AI what your kids think is cool, or else it's going to come up with some pretty uncool things. And then also, if you just don't have the brain space at the end of the day for a restorative reflection with a kiddo, that can just kind of help you ground in some language that's responsive. We also just wanted to show you, if you do have a really big AI conversation that you want to share as a link, both ChatGPT and Magic School and all AIs have the ability to share. You'll usually see a little arrow or a share button, and it will give you the option to share a link to that entire chat, so you don't have to copy and paste all of that content. So just a few, a little bit more pro tips with prompting and using chat bots. Magic School is free, and we are currently working on purchasing pro licenses, perhaps for the next school year. So right now we all just have the free version, which doesn't really limit too much, I would say. But yes, we can chat a little bit more if you have other questions. But right now, we want to give you about 5 minutes to explore and ask questions. You can either just play around with some prompt stems in whatever GPT you want. You could use Magic School Arena. You could use OpenAI. Or you could practice some of those prompting techniques, or you could use Magic School tools. And I'm just going to start the timer for 5 minutes for us to play around and ask questions. And we will feel free to come over the mic and ask questions or drop it in the chat. We'll answer those for y'all. And if you want to be reminded on how to how to export a link to your chat, we have 2 screenshots. The first one is from like a GPT chatbot. You'll see a little export arrow, and that'll give you a link to share. And then we also have a Magic School. You'll see the little share icon, and you can share it that way as well. So just give a little blurb about what you created and drop a link in the chat, and we'll move on in about 30 seconds or a minute.
Nice. Wendy said she generated some math problems related to her new Venezuelan students.
That is awesome. And again, yeah, like Wendy knowing that specific context for her kids to put in to make that relevant for them, like you putting in that information is going to make the output a lot more relevant for what you're looking for. But we are now going to move on to some tools to differentiate and translate using AI. And this is what a lot of teachers were kind of looking for to support their students. So we're really excited about this.
Yeah, so our first key term is natural language processing. It's basically that process of taking human speak, recording it, breaking it down, and then responding back. In my house, we always refer to this as our smart friend, because if I say her name, then she turns on. And so we all have these smart friends, but we also have to be aware of the bias that are behind these, because there are limited languages. So like Amazon's smart friend only speaks 11 languages. Well, we have tens of thousands of languages in our wonderful world. So we have to realize that it is dominant culture bias, at least right now, and how it's processing that. And then even ones that are trying to use smaller populations of language speakers, who's actually coding that? Who's doing that? Is that native speakers that we're using, or who's behind the creation of that?
And speaking of language and creation of language, we named as the indicator that we want to push for most in our instruction as a group, using students' full language repertoires as valuable assets in our instruction. So we're going to go over some tools to really help bring out that linguistic diversity in our classrooms. But shout out to Jean Fang already, and I'm so sorry, I gotta respell that. Shout out to Jia Fang for already using the translation AI tool with her kiddos in her Mandarin classes. And also to Rachel S. for translating her slides in Canva. So cool to see that already happening. So shout out to y'all. Also shout out Rachel S. for giving both the English version and the Spanish version. Really cool to see that. So we do have some tools in Magic School for differentiation.
Yeah, these are just some examples that we highlighted. Again, there's over 60 tools in there and they keep adding new ones. So keep going back to that list and seeing what they have. You can just see some of the ones that came to our eye when we were looking at those. Text leveler, just kind of a caveat there. Again, these should always be offered in addition to the grade level text. I mean, the DPS focus is we want students accessing grade level texts always, but this could help scaffold that process and get students approaching that more easily. Same thing for translation tools. Here are a few in Magic School that you can use for translation. Again, please offer these in addition to the actual grade level text in English. And also, if you're really doing formal like community communications to your school community that needs to be in official DPS languages, please use the DPS translation services for that. If you're just doing a quick email to a parent, this Magic School, some of these might be a great use. But for the official stuff, remember that there is a DPS translation service for those, for all, is it 17, 18? How many official DPS languages do we have now, Luke? Do you remember? It's a lot.
Well, we have the consent decree languages, but we also want to translate into as many as possible.
True.
And if anybody has any experience using translation tools that they have found super successful in their instruction, like please drop it in the chat. Again, we're here to learn alongside of y'all. But we are going to show you outside of Magic School some other tools that we can use. And then again, we'll give you a few minutes to play around. So the first tool we wanted to also show you is in Canva. There's an amazing translation tool like right at the top. Really, and any design you choose, you can translate right away. So I'm just going to show you a quick STEAM Expo, May 4th, 2024. If you don't know, now you do. Bring your students. But I want to translate this flyer that I made in Canva. So all of these text elements and pictures, I can easily do that by just clicking up here, resize and magic switch. And it gives me an option to translate. And I'm just going to I'll select Arabic. And I'm just going to only apply it to the first page because that's in English. And I'm just going to translate it. And just like that, it opens up a new copy in the translated language. Again, it's going to, because languages contract and expand based on translations, you're going to need to probably play around with formatting. And this is just for the day-to-day instructional tool. I just realized that I didn't have my voila moment. I'm so sorry. But here we go. Here's the Arabic version. And you're going to see that I'm going to have to shift around a few things to make it work and change maybe the font sizes. But it's a really quick way to translate like a slide deck for kiddos or a text excerpt. And again, partnering it with that English version, of course. And then we're going to talk about how to translate using Google Translate.
Yeah, so I'm going to need to take over here for just a moment and do my entire screen. It should be this one. And that should be coming up shortly here. A quick reminder again, we do want to, as much as possible, for outward facing content to have, especially family communication, we want that to be run through the translation services through DPS. But the AI has made great gains in terms of translating. It, in some cases, is even teaching itself new languages. But we're just going to take a quick look at how to translate using Google Translate. The links on here are done in both English and Spanish references, so you can choose either one of those. But what I'm going to do is look at here's a slide deck that I have, and there's a kind of a trick. There's always a secret handshake you need to know in technology to get things done correctly. But under the file menu, which a lot of people don't use, under this file menu, you have an option to download the slide deck that you have. And there are two different kinds that we want to focus on. And one is a PowerPoint. I know we don't have Microsoft Office anymore. We don't need it either. We just want to know that that's one of the two formats we want to download, or a PDF. The difference being, if your content, like on this page, has a lot of text. This is a text box and I can edit it, but it also has images. And if I download PowerPoint, it's not going to know how to translate an image. I'd have to use a PDF. So again, under File, Download, real quick, if I want to be able to have a better formatting, I'm going to use Microsoft. I'm going to go ahead and download the PDF so we can see both the images and the text downloaded. And that's downloading pretty quickly here. There we go. So here's my document. I just downloaded that, and I'm back on Google Translate. And most of the time, people are just writing things in and getting a translation to another language. By the way, the down caret is where you can choose the specific languages you want to use. But you can also change this to images or documents or even websites. And in this case, because it's a PDF, I'm going to use my image. Actually, it should work also under document. I'm going to just drag this up to that and click on translate. And I could choose other languages. I probably should have only selected a couple of tabs, but now I want to download it. And here is my translated version. Bring it over here. And now you can see that both the text and the images have, that one is not translated. It should have grabbed that as images. I'm going to very quickly just drop in as an image instead, see if I get better results. Can't translate this file format. I'd have to download it as a JPEG or PNG. So the best thing to know is to practice this before you show it live.
But Matthew, you're saying if there's text within an image, that's when it gets kind of tricky. If you just have like pictures on your slides that don't have any text, then you probably just want to use the PowerPoint download?
Correct.
Okay.
You get a better format result. Sometimes with a PDF, it changes the font size and moves things around a little bit. All right. Next. I think we're back to Kaylee.
Awesome. So we're going to give you all about 5 minutes to play around with either some magic tools for differentiation or translation, going back into Canva and playing around with their translation options, or just using Google Translate to translate some Google Slides that you might have upcoming for a lesson or a presentation, or even just really any image that you want to drop into Google Slide or into Google Translate. So about 5 minutes to play around with that, ask questions in the chat, and then we'll come back as a whole group.
Ellie, before you go,
Around with, we are here. Please just drop it in the chat, but we are going to get moving on.
So here are some other tools that we're big fans of for translating. Again, everybody really wants to be able to translate for our students. So Read and Write is a tool that you can get under your extensions. The teacher version is free. The student version does require licenses, so it's kind of limited. We also have HeyGen, which can translate you into an avatar, and you can speak all these different languages. It even moves your lips. That's pretty cool. Again, there's a free trial version of that, and then you have to start paying after that. And then, of course, all the wonderful free things in Google Translate. And then other tools for differentiation, we have Diftit, which can be great about using just some ideas for differentiating for your students. Goblin Tools helps break things down. You can put in your content and it can give you some suggestions. It can make like a list of orders. So somebody with ADHD like me, you have this big long project and you can then spit it in, and then you can say, no, I need even more steps to that. And it will like grab a pencil, put the pencil to the paper, right? And it can get those down. And then a cool one that's more like a humanities-based tool, and this is developed by some people within our DPS community, is AI Teach Assist. So again, if you want to dive deeper into any of these tools, here are some YouTube videos to get you started.
And so I'm really excited for this next section when we kind of dive a little bit deeper into ethics and equity when thinking about linguistically sustaining practices for AI. I also, our facilitators, we're just going to skip out on our breakout rooms for this, and I'll kind of just explain instructions in a second. But I really just want us to take a moment to ground today in Indigenous, ethical, and equitable uses of AI. Last time we took a look at the U.S. Department of Education's use of AI. We looked at some digital Black feminism and ethics around AI bias. And I was really inspired by this Indigenous Protocol and Artificial Intelligence book that I read over the weekend. And it's just a new approach to thinking about AI that in a non-Western way almost. So there is a beautiful quote that says, "Man is neither height nor center of creation. This belief is core to many Indigenous epistemologies. It underpins ways of knowing and speaking that acknowledge kinship networks that extend to animal and plant, wind and rock, mountain and ocean. Indigenous communities worldwide have retained that languages and protocols that enable us to engage in dialogue with our non-human kin, creating mutually intelligible discourses across differences in material, vibrancy, and genealogy." So really thinking like we are developing relationships with these new technologies and with our students, and we really just want to think of all of these linguistically and culturally sustaining ways that we can use them. So we're going to go into our Canva whiteboards in a moment. And we are each going to kind of jigsaw different readings. Each different whiteboard has a different reading, and we're just going to take about 5 minutes to go into the whiteboard, and you're going to find your reading in the whiteboard. If you click that caret at the bottom to navigate different pages, we're going to go to page 3, and your reading will be right here. And really, we're just looking at the discussion questions. What are some culturally and linguistically sustaining considerations around technology use that we can take away from these readings? And what implications do these takeaways have when working with our students? So we're just going to take about 5 minutes to solo read the passage that is in your Canva whiteboard. And if you need a link to your Canva whiteboard, just let us know. We'll drop one in the chat. But we're just going to take 5 minutes to read the reading that is in your whiteboard and just jot down some thoughts on the Post-it note, and we'll come back full group.
And if your note, your Canva link is not to the same reading as the group you're doing, just do whichever one you happen to show up in. It works either way.
I just dropped a whiteboard in the chat if you need a whiteboard to join. And again, you're going to navigate to the third slide in that whiteboard space to find your reading. Sabrina, sorry, we're not going into a breakout room. We're just jigsawing readings. So your jigsawed reading will be found in your Canva whiteboard, and we each have different readings assigned in our whiteboards. And I can show you how to do that. If you're in your Canva whiteboard space, you're going to go down to the very bottom and click the caret to get to the third page, and that's where your reading will be.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, just take a moment, take a look at the reading and think about, like, what does this mean for our students? What does this mean for culturally and linguistically sustaining practices when we're thinking about us using technology? And we're going to come back in about 1 minute. As long as you had a chance to get a reading, and if you did, that's great. If you didn't, we can gain some stuff from discussion. All right. So as we start coming back into the main room, if you were able to post something on a Post-it note, that's great. But we really just kind of want to jigsaw these readings and have people drop in the chat what they took away from their reading in terms of culturally and linguistically sustaining practices with technology and what this means for our students. So just drop your reflection in the chat. And if you do want to read those other readings, they're all fascinating and beautiful. The slide deck has each of them. So group 1 read about just vanishing endangered Indigenous languages and the importance of involving Indigenous speakers in the programming of Indigenous languages. Group 2 read about involving Indigenous peoples in creating hardware. So a man named John Corbett developed his own keyboard in line with the Cree star chart to better represent his linguistic expression. Group 3 read about general implications for AI use and just considering 7 generations into the future in any decision that you make with technology. Group 4 read about using your community to build capacity amongst each other, not only to use AI, but to create AI. And Group 5 looked at how Indigenous language speakers program their own AI to kind of represent their own translation applications. So super cool readings. And sorry we had to cut time short just because we've had some breakout room difficulties, but we want to make sure we get through all the content today too. So if you had any reflections, feel free to put them in to the chat on just what your takeaways for using AI with students kind of rang true to you after going through these readings. And we are going to just keep moving through content and end with differentiation and being culturally and linguistically sustaining through multimodal learning. I was fortunate enough to be at an IB school where we just engaged mostly in project-based learning. And really, I thought that was the best way to connect with my kids. And multimodal learning is incorporating visual, auditory, reading, writing, and kinesthetic activities for kiddos, and just providing voice and choice and options on how kids learn and how they show what they learn.
Yeah, and multimodal generative AI really just talks about taking one domain and generating content in another. For example, you can use text to ask for an image to be created, or you can add audio and ask for a video that complements that. You can use any of those with different kinds of AIs, but you're really looking for AI that is multimodal generative in order to be able to cross over those different domains. And then style transformer. Styles are a little bit like the idea of filters. If you've ever seen those in like any of the social media types, but it also has a way to take those stylistic features in a second image and combine two models to create a third merged image. Those styles can transform the entire output.
So grounding in our text for the PDU, the Holly Clark's, the AI-infused classroom, just want to highlight some of the work that she did on how we can use multimodal work with our students to really demonstrate their knowledge. We started our first live session saying, hey, we're here. A lot of teachers are concerned about cheating with AI and that the students are just going to have an AI product that they're going to then copy and paste and turn in. So with a documented learning, with a multimodal learning, the students are really creating throughout the process, and it's really hard to use AI just to create everything because you're doing like some pre-work, some during work, you're doing a post-reflection, and if they are creating things, it's them recording a video, it's them making a play, it's not going to be something that they can just copy and paste from ChatGPT. So we're going to focus in on that. And in our text here on the next slide, we just have some excerpts from the book talking about some ways that we can make that learning visual with our students. It does take a little bit more work from us as teachers to get it set up, but our students really want to engage in this, right? Like if my students making a magazine cover based off of the unit that we're working on, I can really see what my students are thinking and doing. And so as we're moving into this next creativity using Canva, think of how you can have your students use multiple modalities or how you can use multiple modalities to help support your students. So I'm going to jump into Canva then here, and Kaylee, I'm going to take over. And I'm just going to show you some basic AI tools in Canva. So when I first come into my Canva here, I can just type in a
sorry, we don't see your screen.
Oh, shoot.
Now we do.
There we go. Okay, just a delay. Thank you. I'm going to think of a content that's coming up or something I just did. So hey, I really want to refine that last unit I taught. How can I provide some infographics for my students? Or I want my students to be able to respond multimodality to an upcoming unit. So say that's going to be steps of cell division. When I type that prompt into Canva, and this is just the Canva homepage, it's going to give me some kind of like broken down ideas. And it's like, no, I really want the steps of the cell division. So I'm going to search that up here in Canva. And it's going to give me two different locations. First, if you can see here, Magic Design is actually going to be generating some content for me just based off of my prompt. So I have a YouTube thumbnail, an Instagram post, and a Facebook post here that it is going based off of that. I can have a story here. That's pretty fun. And then I also have the community. So these are just like community resources. And actually, you know what? This steps of mitosis here looks really good. I can copy this, try to give credit to the source here that's on it, and be able to use those images. Maybe I want to use some different vocabulary for the steps. But what I really want to be able to do is, make this more specific. We talked about prompt generations. I'm going to say grade 8. Prompt engineering here. I'm going to try to refine it, and let's see now what my Magic Design is going to come up with. And I can be doing this with my students. Canva is an approved AI tool for your students. They do have Magic Design. And you know what? This is a great setup. I'm going to use this and make a display for the beginning of my class. So I can just click on this Facebook cover. I know it says Facebook. I'm not going to use that, but I can go ahead and grab this. So thinking of content that you have coming up, or content that you just did in the past, we're going to create our own content in our breakout room. So we're going to go back to our breakout rooms for 10 minutes. We're going to create our content in a shared collaborative space.
We're actually not going to be in breakout rooms. Sorry, we just have to cut that. I also wanted to add, I just dropped a link to a curriculum resource into that search bar, and it took the content from the link. So you can drop a whole link or like a lot of text into that search bar, and it will generate using that content. But we do just want to give you guys about 7 minutes or so to play around with Canva's Magic Create based on some content that you're going to be looking at in an upcoming lesson, or maybe you're giving a presentation for a professional learning on something. Again, you can type it into this bar, and I just dropped a link to an EL 2.0 lesson, and it made me a slide deck on that lesson, like the basic content. So pretty cool to see the AI generated content when you put in a lot of specific instructions.
And it does say in that search box to use 5+ words to describe your design. So the more verbose you are, the better your results will be.
What if we're not seeing that screen? I don't see anything with Magic Design. I don't know what's going on with my computer today. Do I need to update? What's going on? I'm seeing nothing that you're showing.
So if you give it more words, it should add the Magic Design to it. If you're using a more basic, it doesn't always come up with the Magic Designs. It'll give you like the community resources or just some basic ideas. So here,
I don't even see that prompt that says, "What will you design today?"
Right, Deborah,
I see nothing.
I think that the issue is that when you first try to sign into Canva, you need to actually create an account with your DPS email account rather than using the Google login directly the first time.
Okay, let me try that. See if that makes a difference.
Because I think that your specific issue is just it's never really getting you logged into Canva correctly.
So we're going to take about 5 more minutes to generate either a presentation, infographic on Canva. But if you do need a little extra support, I'm just going to go back in to Canva's homepage and show you kind of how to do that. Anna Maria, there's a reflection survey to close out the module. That's in Schoology. But thanks for joining us. So I'm going to go back into Canva. And I'm just going to do a magic design for, I want to do Heroes of the Civil War on the Union side. And I'm going to have it create for me. I just clicked out of it on accident. I'm sorry. All right. Heroes of the Civil War on the Union side. And I just typed it in there. And because I had more than 5 words, it's generating specific content for me. And say I wanted, ooh, this looks interesting, this Facebook cover, this YouTube thumbnail, a Facebook post. I also really like just going into presentations themselves. So if I wanted to just open a brand new presentation, it's blank right now, but in this search bar, I can just type in Heroes of the Union Civil War. And it will come up. So you can see right here that it's generating. And ooh, I'm going to take a look at what it generated for me. Heroes of Union Civil War. Union Army heroes, ordinary citizens. And it's always just like a jumping off point. But it's kind of just, again, basic content and filler for you to then plug in your specific lesson plan. But the more that you have to go off of, the better it will be. So maybe, let's say literary devices in William Shakespeare. And the more specific that you are, the more specific generated content it should get for you. So let's see.
I'll also add, since we're talking about differentiation in the section, that this is a really great way to get your students going. I often found that with my middle schoolers in social studies, they just had a hard time getting like that first slide created or that first paragraph written. And so if you can use some of these AI tools to get those creative juices flowing, getting it organized, like, oh, I want to talk about this. And then, no, I don't want to talk about this, but I do want to take this. And then they're adding in their own content using classroom vocabulary, using, you know, what's going on in your CLO. All of that is a great way to get your students going.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, students are able to use this tool as well. So again, it's a great jumping off point for a lot of kids, and also teaching them that AI literacy skill of, you don't just stop at what AI generated for you. You have to add in your own content, your own knowledge, or else it'll be very generic and probably not relevant exactly to what you need. But we are going to, if you were able to create something, we would love for you to share it in the Canva whiteboard space. And we are so sorry that we're running short on time again, but we would love if you were able to, on slide 4 of our Canva. So again, click that caret and navigate to the 4th slide. If you generated either a poster, a slideshow, an image, or anything else, you can just add it in the box or add the image itself. And Luke, I don't know if you wanted to explain a little more for that.
No, I think it's good. Sorry, we're running behind.
Yeah, no. If we could just take, like, if you had anything that you created, if you want to drop it into your Canva whiteboard space on that slide 4, we'll give you about 2 minutes to do that. And then we will close out together. And if you have any questions, if you need us to review anything, now is a great time to ask. And Canva is really great for having like internal, you can internally add things. So on the very left-hand side, if you click projects, and if you made something in Canva, you have all of your past designs here, so you can just drag them in as well. So I'm just going to click see all designs. Ooh, I really want to add in my Arabic flyer for the STEAM Expo. So I'm just going to drop it in here. So you can put all of your other designs in as well. It's nicely integrated. Sarah, thanks for joining. And our closure was going to be, if you're able to do a quick translation of whatever, if you're able to do a quick translation of whatever you created, and we could have a multilingual representation of what we learned today, that would be amazing. So if you're in slide 4 of your Canva whiteboard space and you have your English version, you can then use the translation tool in Canva to translate it. So I'm going to use this example. I made a little ebook on a scientist. So I'm going to embed the design here, and I'm going to click the text, and I can click resize, and I'm going to just translate it into a different language. And Sabrina, I'm sorry. We are recording this session, and we will be putting it on our Schoology page as well. This page got fun. So we put a lot on you. Sorry, the breakout rooms gave us a little snag, but if you were able to create something multimodally, whether it was a poster, an infographic, a slide deck using AI, that is awesome. If you're able to quickly translate it within Canva or even uploading it into Google Translate, that is awesome as well. And if you're able to then add all that in the Canva whiteboard, even better, but please don't feel like you have to navigate all of those things in this time. We just want to give you some time to play around with multimodal creation and translation of whatever you create. All right, so if you were able to add that into the Canva whiteboard, awesome. We would just like for everybody to throw in the chat what's a tool that you're excited to use to either enhance culturally or linguistically sustaining instructional practices. If you could just throw that in the chat as we talk about our PDU next steps, that would be amazing. So just what did you learn? What are you going to use today, and how are you going to use it? So our PDU next steps, module 2, to close it out, step 4 was posted. And there's just a quick reading and a quick video to watch. And then there's a midpoint reflection survey just to get some feedback from you all on how this course is going for you. And then also just time for you to check in on your instructional practices. And then again, if you haven't administered your student survey yet, please do so before our next module, module 3. That's when we talk about student use. And part of that module, you will look at your student data. Again, we are compiling that student data and organizing it so it's nice and easy for you to read. And that should be coming out by the end of this week. And module 3 will be posted on March 4th. Our next live session is March 18th. Again, that's a Monday, and it will be from 4 to 5:30. And module 3, we will be talking around teaching students how to responsibly, equitably, and ethically use AI. And again, we are still going to be problem solving on what that's going to look like with our students. But if you feel like you've had any experiences with it that have been successful, we would love to hear about those as well.
Kaylee, quick question.
Yep.
One of the questions we have is, how will I know how many of my students have responded to the form?
Awesome. Yeah. So I would say, sorry, let me back up. We're going to send you all of your raw data when we fix all the spellings of the names and everything. So you'll see all of the students that responded, their IDs. If you just click on their ID, you can see the student name as well, but their IDs are included in one of the columns. I don't necessarily care if 100% of your students took that survey. You might, if you wanted to make that a grade, but just for you to get a general idea of how students are using AI, it's kind of just like a bigger picture thing. But if you do want to hold students accountable, when we get you that data, you can see all of the student ID numbers who submitted a response. And
just a real quick aside. I know we're right at time.
Yeah.
People were asking about AI tools that students could use. Goblin Tools, which we mentioned on one of the slides, is entirely free, no login, and it's actually kind of geared towards students. It's for neurodivergent learners to help them kind of break down complex tasks. But there's some other little pieces of that too. So you might want to check out that Goblin Tools and see if that might be of use to any of your students. Again, put it on the ATM. It's always good practice just to say, hey, yep, we're using this. If your kiddos do look at that one.
And again, closing out Module 2, thank you guys so much for joining this live session. Sorry about some of our timing issues, but glad that we all got to participate in some learning together. We will share out we'll kind of combine all of the Canva whiteboards and share out that aggregated asset data and just see kind of what we all had to say about today's learnings. But if you have any questions, feel free to stay back. But thank you so much. We appreciate you all.
Kaylee, I am having so much trouble today with all, like, I'm not seeing stuff.
Debbie,
Do I
I'm
just need to
fine.
update? Is there anything you recommend? I tried to reset. Maybe I need to make sure my computer's updated.
I think that your Chrome profile just isn't logged in, maybe.
Yeah, when I go to Canva, it's logging me in on an archived profile. So that's
Right.
why it's not connecting from the one I usually use, I think.
Right. It's switched over.
So I don't.
Yeah, if you just use that drop-down caret and go to your archived one, that's kind of what I've been doing.
Okay, so just use the archived one and then
But
work from
also
there.
wherever